Okay, so while running time was a bit of a dud, it still marks an important distinction with these long-take movies. If nothing else, it showed that they could be done on location, and not just confined to a single set like Rope was. So, when it was made, regardless of quality, a new bar had been set. What would be the next film that would try to outdo that? That film was Timecode, officially the first film on this list that is actually one continuous shot and not just long takes edited together. But then it takes it even further. In 1999, director Mike Figgis, best known for Leaving Las Vegas, put together the film's idea. What could be better than one long continuous take? How about 4 long continuous takes? Yes, Timecode was shot by 4 cameras that filmed simultaneously and presents every camera's point of view simultaneously, each one taking up one quadrant of the screen. The film also features some recognizable actors: Selma Hayek, Saffron Burrows, Stellan Skarsgård, Holly Hunter, Xander Berkeley, and that's just to name a few. So there you have it. Academy-nominated director, dependable actors, original filmmaking idea. Surely this would be the groundbreaking single-shot film we've been waiting for, right? I've seen Timecode described as many things. Some say it's a straight-up drama, others say it's a thriller. I've even seen some people call it a dark comedy. More than anything, though, Timecode is an experiment. The director and cast got together and outlined what the story was to be over the course of 4 days. Figgis, who is also a composer, even wrote the outline on sheet music paper as a way of keeping the actors' stories timed up and in sync. Each member of the cast had their characters and a predetermined structure to stick to, but other than that, all their dialogue was completely improvised. Mumblecore hadn't yet become much of a subgenre yet with independent filmmaking, unless you count something like The Blair Witch Project, so this made it probably one of the earliest films to rely on totally off-the-cuff performances. They filmed in 4 continuous takes from 4 digital cameras, which were still fairly new at the time. The DVD menu even has an illustration showing the distance that each one of the cameras covered by which screen they coordinate with. And with the extensive movement of the cameras, no boom mics could be used, so the actors had to wear microphones, and sometimes mics would have to be hidden on the set. Then over the course of the next couple of weeks, they filmed it 15 more times, with the last take being the one they used for the movie. A lot of different stuff with this one. And though the movie is 4 screens at once, it's not constant noise. Throughout the story, the segment they want you to focus on has its volume increase while the rest become quiet. Sometimes this slips through steadily, other times it's more sudden.
You are a fucking slut.
Because of that, to help for this review's purposes, I'll try to make distinct which screen I'm talking about, and I'll sometimes zoom in on whichever screen I'm referring to in that moment. So yes, you have multiple stories going on at once, and they all surround, get this, a movie production company. And I guess they figured, first time trying something like this, might as well, keep it close to home and stick to what they know best. The movie industry. They even use their own production name in the film. In my opinion, Timecode is much better than Running Time in terms of content making sense, but just like with Running Time, I question whether this story was really worthy of this technique. But this technique does offer a lot of intrigue. Most of the films on this list brand themselves as some sort of radical break from traditional film, but this one really does feel like the biggest departure. And that's why it ushered in an era where all movie studios were putting out their 4-screen movies, and they eventually swept the Oscars and film festivals alike. I'm kidding. No one's ever really attempted this again, and I mean, yeah, the 4 screens thing is kind of cool, and I've never seen a film like that before, but that might be for good reason. Does that mean that this idea can't work at all, that it's immediately bad? No, I mean, it seems interesting. Yeah, even the Rotten Tomatoes consensus can't really muster up a positive trait more than that. Which, yeah, considering all the effort and experimenting that went into this, getting an average reception to it is kind of a disappointing turnout. Okay, but that's all pre-production and reaction. What about the actual plot of the movie in between? Bear with me, this took a couple views to get the full scope of it. So Alex is an alcoholic director at the Red Mullet. Rose is an aspiring actress. She's been sleeping with him so she can possibly get an audition in one of his movies, despite the fact that he's married to his wife Emma and Rose has her girlfriend Lauren. At the start of the film, Emma is in a therapy session where we see she may already know about the affair and wonders what to do about it. Meanwhile, Lauren, also onto the affair, lets the air out of Rose's tires so she can give her a ride to her audition, allowing her a chance to plant a listening device in her purse so she can spy on their interaction. Meanwhile, the other members of the production company have a meeting where they discuss something about a herpes outbreak.
Outbreak of herpes, and it's really a nightmare. I mean, the insurance company's given us 2 more days, and then we gotta make a decision.
Whether the word bitch should be left in the title of a film.
You're taking bitch out of the title.
Oh, okay, that's no
All right, it's just derogatory.
I think that's a good idea. I like bitch.
I like bitch.
I like bitch.
And eventually they're concerned for Alex's absence and his alcohol use.
Darren, we really need to have a serious talk about this, about Alex being late. I mean, he lives 3 blocks away. This is ridiculous. It's unprofessional. It's unfair to Alex.
I think we should perform an intervention. And I know that most of the time they're not successful, but I think that this is something we should be fabulous for him.
Meanwhile, Lester Moore is a director facing pressure to cast his next movie much faster than he was originally told, and the actress who shows up for the audition isn't really right for the part and doesn't really understand the role.
This part was a very demanding part, a very full, rich part. And, you know, she tries to kill herself.
What's the tone of the movie? Is it just sort of, is it like comedy or drama?
No, this is a very deep, rich melodrama.
Also, she does drugs with the cop at the front door. They must have really great security. Meanwhile, Emma shows up and Alex assures her that they'll go away somewhere and maybe buy a house in Tuscany, but she tells him that she's leaving him. Meanwhile, when Rose arrives, she and Alex have their little tryst right behind the screen in the screening room where all the members are watching a sex scene from one of their films. Hey, sound guy, you did a great job. I mean, that sex sounds so real. Yeah, you're probably noticing that there's kind of too much going on. But, I mean, at the same time, none of the plots are especially big, so it kind of evens out, but still, it kind of feels like everything's fighting to be heard at once. A lot of things kind of have to just be inferred. After Rose finds out that Alex can't get her an audition, she goes to cry in the bathroom where she runs into Lester's assistant, who then tells Lester that she's found the perfect actress for the role he needs to cast. What was their conversation that led her to believing this? I don't know. We barely hear any of it, but we get the gist, I guess. There's also this masseuse that comes in early, and you see him throughout the film just giving people massages in random moments. I think it's supposed to be a running joke. It feels like one anyways. Oh, and there's also a Sikh nurse in a few scenes. I don't even remember if we hear any real dialogue with her, but she pops up a few times. I'm kind of surprised we don't get more about Emma. We see her story start before anyone else's, but after she ends it with her husband, we're kind of left in the dark despite the fact that we still technically see her throughout the film. After she leaves the casting agency, she goes to a nearby bookstore where she runs into a guy we saw on the phone from earlier. They talk for a bit, and I don't gather that it's anything more than small talk. But then she also goes to the bathroom to cry, I guess about the breakup. She's then comforted by Cherie, the actress from the audition earlier. After they run into some people on the sidewalk showing up for the meeting, Cherie then invites her back to her place where she talks Emma into doing some coke too, and then I'm not really sure what's happening. Well, as one lesbian relationship ends, another begins. I don't know. As she leaves, she exchanges words with this guy, and then runs out of there and spends the rest of the movie walking down the sidewalk. We never really get answers on anything with her. Even with the structure planned out, we really don't know how much control the director had over certain shots just lining up. Clearly there's some communication considering that earthquakes happen throughout the film and they all react at the same time. I mean, some parts seem incredibly well timed out with each other, but it seems like there's so many variables that you almost have to wonder how much of this was planned to be that way and how much of it they were just like, wow, that part turned out great. Who'd have thought? I mean, they shot this film 15 times before the version that we see, so how many other amazing coincidences did we not get to see? Apparently Figgis was worried that people would think the individual screens were just strung together long takes, so he told his cast, who were all responsible for their own hair, makeup, and wardrobe, to never wear the same outfit twice for a shoot.
And what's this part you're auditioning for?
I'm auditioning for the part of a teacher
Dressed like that?
who used to be a shepherd.
Dressed like that?
Give me a break. I ran out of appropriate outfits after the 9th take. I'd say I can only imagine what pitching this film must have been like, but we don't have to imagine, because later in the film, some musical clients are in a meeting with the production members and they convey their ideas for certain types of films, and guess what they suggest?
Each of these 4 cameras will follow a character. And the characters are going to meet with each other, creating the plot of the story, creating the plot of the film.
Yeah. When you make a movie about making movies, you gotta break the fourth wall at least once. And if you got 4 screens, how many walls is that broken then? Thankfully, they even it out with a little self-deprecation.
This is the most pretentious crap I've ever heard.
I mean, I like this concept and what it's going for. I like the idea of what's happening when you're usually only seeing one thing and what are you missing normally. And in a way, I think this might be the most interesting film in the series, but it's also kinda the least watchable. Something like this only could have worked out great with an incredibly intricate story with perfectly planned out moments, and considering how much effort was going into this as is, I'm not sure how possible that would have been. When you rely on improvised performances that have to allow for a certain duration, you get a lot of repetitive dialogue that's clearly just trying to kill time.
Oh my god, are you really less than more?
Get out of here.
No, I swear to God.
You're pulling my leg?
No, I'm not pulling my leg.
Because it would be very cruel if you were, you know.
Are you shitting me? Are you for real?
He's serious, Rose. And despite some very nice choreography from the cameras passing each other by or transitioning from one screen to another, or even just them avoiding being exposed by mirrors, there's still a few disembodied hands here and there. And anytime there's a film score, it can really only be fitting to a couple screens at a time. Some work a little better, like when everyone is sat in their respective frames. That's a little bit more fitting.
Really big mistake.
I even kind of like the diegetic music when the client is playing them a sample of his work. You could even say I dig it.
Hey, diggy, diggy. Trotsky in the house, diggy, diggy. Lenin in the house, diggy, diggy. Tsar Nikolai staying up late.
I'm gonna avoid spoiling the ending, which is actually a kinda suspenseful climax, since I do think this film is worth a watch, even if it did take me a couple views to fully appreciate it. Strangely, the movie that I get the most similar vibe from is Cloud Atlas, a film that mostly managed to stay on the positive side of approval, as it was considered very impressive and ambitious, but also I heard several people say watching it was kind of like doing homework. Like, in order to fully enjoy it, you had to pay attention like 10 times more than usual. It's kind of the same thing here. So yeah, I think Timecode is a little cool, even if it is a bit exhausting to watch at times. I totally understand if it's not for everyone, but it's still an impressive feat even if it didn't lead to its own subgenre or anything. And if nothing else, it's the first legitimate single-take film on this list. But just a couple years after this one, someone else would try their hand at it.